Welcome, welcome, welcome to the UpKeep Pledge Pros Podcast, a podcast dedicated to unmatched value and unwavering support for our customers and the community at large. Today, we have a new friend of the show. We have someone who has done the work, has worked their way into leadership. Today, we are talking to Mike McKinney of Alder Creek Beverages. He is the general manager over there. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bryan. I appreciate it. Looking forward to this.
You are very welcome. As you know, you and I connected. We're trying to talk to people who have done the work, been in the trades, maybe stayed there, moved to leadership, right? So, super valuable, super important. You worked somewhere that we are going to talk about that I am super interested in hearing about. I'm not going to drop that quite yet. And then I have five very specific questions to ask you pertaining to maintenance, leadership, things like that. And we'll roll with it. But before we do all those things, Mike, excuse me, can you give us a little bit of backstory about where you started in industry, and ultimately what you're doing today for Alder Creek?
Absolutely. So back when I was a young buck, 18, 19 years old, I grew up in an area that had the local Remington Arms plant that has been here for over 100 years.
So cool, man.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it's an iconic building in our area. It's kind of cool that, those guns were manufactured here. I mean, it's just it was a fantastic opportunity growing up. You saw pretty much everybody locally retiring from the plant. So my father was in manufacturing. He actually worked for a different company locally that actually invented the spring jointed nutcracker. So it's kind of cool thing, but I mean, both in
Yeah,
the same area. So I kind of grew up just wanting to be in manufacturing. So I took a job with Remington when I was
nice.
18, 19 years old. And I ultimately was able to get into operating CNC machines.
Cool.
It, I did well with that, so they taught me programming of the CNC machines. And I really, really, really enjoyed that. I mean, it was fun. I like the automation aspect of it. And you're talking 20 plus years ago. So, I mean, the industry has certainly grown since then.
Yeah.
From there, unfortunately, Remington at the time had some layoffs. So I got into food manufacturing. Uh, Basically got an operator job at a local tea plant where they manufactured tea bags. I showed a good inclination and got into maintenance very, very quickly there. During my time in maintenance, I absolutely, absolutely loved it. I had some very, very good mentors that taught me just about everything I needed to know. During that time, I also got the opportunity to lead, and I saw the opportunity as a way to bridge the gap between operations and the maintenance team. I saw a lot of failures in that aspect. So I kind of really just ran with that from that point on. I've always stayed in maintenance. I've been the head of maintenance anywhere I've been. I worked at the tea plant for a good majority of my career, over a little over 10 years there. And unfortunately, they got bought out and everything moved south, which happens.
Right.
Uh, from there, I got into Alder Creek Beverages. We are a spring water, health conscious beverage manufacturer, and I've been here now for a little over 6 years. I started out here as production manager, moved on to plant manager, and actually in the last 3 months got promoted to the general manager.
Nice. It's awesome. I love to hear it. I love to hear um, the first going into maintenance. I'm a maintenance person, been one my whole life. Two, recognizing the disconnects between departments, right? Between maintenance, operations, safety, all
Absolutely.
these things. They must be bridged. There must be symbiosis for mutual successes there. So capitalizing on that and learning to bridge those gaps is immensely valuable. So that's awesome. And it's so funny when you mention the Remington plant, you think of, I know I think of, because I've watched like documentaries on it and things, you think of like, you know, handmade everything, super old, right? And then you're talking about running CNC machines in that plant, which is just a wild, wild thing to think about on its own. But so just for a second, can we just touch on the Remington plant? Can you give me some, um, I don't know, some insight into people you knew that worked there, what the working life was like, all that stuff.
Absolutely. So, as I said, growing up, I mean, a large majority of men and even women were retiring from there with a very, very good retirement. They did really, really well. And I was fortunate enough to get a job there, like I said, running some CNC machines. I mean, they also have a lot of the manual stuff, drill presses.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, some of that machinery in there is older than pretty much all of us combined. I mean, there was some machinery 100 years old, still fully operational.
100%. Those manual lathes and mill. Oh man, they're great.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, if you like manufacturing, it was probably one of the coolest places to work because you got to see a mixture of all the old lathes, the drill presses,
Right.
and then you got the newer CNC machines at the time. So, I mean, it was a really cool opportunity. I mean, at one point they did all their own woodworking there, which was really, really cool.
That is
They had
wild.
at one point they had, I think, 10 plus engravers on site just for the custom work that people requested from Remington because that's what they were known for. I
Right.
mean, you could buy your standard 870 or Remington 700, but if you wanted it engraved, they do that all on site. So I mean, all in all, it was a really, really cool experience.
Right. What was the I'm sure you had in that facility you had like tool and die makers. I'm sure
Yes,
you had
absolutely.
I'm sure you had maintenance teams. What were they like? What was their day to day? Was there a lot of I mean, I know antique machines are pretty stout, but like was there a lot of downtime? Was there a lot of like how did that work? Like you being an operator of a CNC and like knowing about like all the other machines in there. Was there like was downtime a thing that people thought about or was stuff pretty smooth?
It was definitely a thing. I mean, it's a massive, massive factor. I mean,
Yeah.
comparatively to what things are now, where everything's built in smaller areas and fit better, it was absolutely massive. So downtime, you had mechanics that were dedicated to the lines, and you had all the specialty guys there. I mean, you had plumbers there just for the steam because they generated all their own steam there.
Hmm.
Uh, so which was pretty cool. I mean, they did a lot of stuff inside that plant. So you had mechanics directly on the line. Now, downtime really wasn't, I mean, it was paper and pen back then, paper and pencil essentially.
Right.
So there wasn't a whole lot of tracking. It was word of mouth, but you'd have a mechanic on the line. He'd be there immediately. So there wasn't anything where you'd lose a ton of time unless there was a major problem, motor replacement, belt replacement, stuff like that
Right.
were the biggest things you were dealing with. I mean, it was the beauty about some of the old mechanical stuff. It was easy to work on.
Yeah, and it's robust, man. I mean, you can fix
Yeah,
it on site, right?
absolutely. So
Yeah.
that was the nice thing. And I mean, they kept a great parts inventory. So they were able to get things up and operational quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have some friends who had worked in some of the old steel mills and talking about forging presses, and you'd see these giant scars on these forging presses where they got cracked, and you can't take them anywhere,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so they would gouge them and weld them and blanket, cover them, so they could soak over time and heat, like just wild stuff, and all that old stuff is so awesome. So there was a lot of multi-craft on site for sure.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I love hearing that. If anybody's interested, there are a lot of documentaries on the Remington factory. There's a lot of stories about that place, and it's pretty wild. Um, okay, Mike, I have 5 questions for you. All
Perfect.
right. Number one, what is the most important quality of a maintenance leader in your opinion? It doesn't have to be about you. It can be if even if you don't even make that quality, right? I mean, like some of us are, we look for things that even ourselves we don't have, right? What do you think that is? What do you believe that is in your opinion?
My most important thing I look for in a maintenance leader is the ability to constantly learn. That is absolutely huge to me. Technology is ever changing, especially, I mean, we run high speed, fully automated lines in our factory right now. The technology is, I mean, comparatively to 20 years ago is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's fantastic, but the ability to constantly keep up with that is the biggest thing, and retaining that information and continually adding on to that is the biggest thing I look for in a maintenance leader.
Right. So like a dynamic learner, someone who can keep
Yeah,
pace and retain.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good one. That's a good one. Very good one. All right. Number two, what do you believe sets apart good from great in a maintenance person, a tradesperson, a reliability person? What do you I know those are, they're relatively similar, but like what do you believe is the difference between someone who's really good and someone who's really great at doing their job or their work or their craft?
I mean, ultimately, I think it comes down to their drive and what they want to do. I've worked with some extremely talented people, but don't really have the drive to continue with that. Yeah, that's the biggest difference is their drive and what they want to make of their career and how they approach it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And with that, I mean, their attitude. I mean, that's one of the hugest things to me in the maintenance field is having a great attitude. The reality is we're going to have to fix something.
Sure.
I mean, we're going to have to at some point. Do we want to prevent it? That's the biggest goal. So how do we do that? What drive do you have? How are we going to prevent this from happening in the future?
Right. One thing with particularly speaking from trade standpoint is how do they the things you're saying I agree with, and I think the thing that gets them jacked up in that is that they don't always necessarily view themselves the way that they should be viewed in that organization. So like there's a lot of external forces on their optics of how they're contributing to the business, right? So
Absolutely.
sometimes, people have they come in wide-eyed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with all that drive, and then the business itself just beats them down, right?
I
And
agree.
that's that culture. And then you can actually turn really, really good potential technicians and mechanics and all these people into not so good, right?
100%. I completely agree. I mean, in my mindset, I put these guys on a pedestal. I mean, they're
Me too.
I mean, these guys are really what are driving the business. I mean, and I don't want to knock anybody else in the organization. I mean, our operators are fantastic,
Of
but
course.
these guys really drive the business. I mean, they can take a line that's running poorly and turn it into our best running line with just a little bit of their maintenance magic. I mean,
Sure.
uh, so it's really putting these guys on a pedestal and really bringing them up to where they deserve to be.
100%. I always say, and I've said this for a long time, not just because I was one, but maintenance people, mechanics, electricians, welders, all those people are literally some of the smartest people that I've ever met. Particularly when it comes to practical application, is really taking something from theory and applying its knowledge to something else, which is, in my opinion, two different things. Some people know things really well in theory and they can talk about them, but they can't apply that knowledge physically to doing something, right? Um,
100%.
and maintenance people are super good at that because they have to be. They have to be able to take what's in their mind and transfer it to doing it with their hands, right?
I 100% agree. I mean, they are, like you said, some of the most practical people I've ever worked with. And I mean, intelligence wise, to see what they see on any given day. I mean, sometimes it baffles me. I'm like, how did you see that? Like, it's truly unbelievable what they can do on any given day.
It's amazing. I love it. I love it. I love celebrating it. I love talking about it. I love doing it, all of it. All right. Number three, how do you view the ever-growing technology in our industry? Is it pushed too much? Is it too fast? Is it perfect? How do you view it? And when I say technology, I mean in general, right? Whether it's new automated processes, whether it's CMMS stuff, whether it's the AI is going to solve all your problems thing, right? How do you view the technology in our industry?
I view it from a bird's eye view, essentially. I believe it's certainly going to help the industry all around. And I think used in the right application, I think it's fantastic. And I think it's really dependent on your processes and where you are at as in a business. I personally love technology. I love learning the new processes that come out, the new ability.
You're a
I'm
CNC machinist. Of course you love technology.
absolutely. I mean, I try to hit all the trade shows, especially in the food and beverage manufacturing industry,
Sure.
because it amazes me the equipment we were using 15 years ago to now. It's truly unbelievable what they've been able to do.
Yeah.
The robotics are phenomenal.
Yeah, it's wild. I was at a food and bev conference in Washington or Oregon, Washington, I don't know, a few months ago. They've got like Fanuc robots doing things now with food manufacturing. They've got like all this wild stuff. I worked in food manufacturing for 2 years. I led several maintenance departments. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just it's wild. My thing with technology is it's 100% um, it's 100% the way at the end of the day, right? It's going to be a thing, whether you have it now or you're going to have it. It's going to touch you in some respect. Um, my thing is when technology companies don't understand the customer, therefore you get misaligned outcomes or misaligned opportunities because there's a disconnect between people who are in manufacturing, in the business of doing the work, and the people who are on the technology software side trying to sell a solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And I've dealt with that a lot over my career. One of the beautiful things where I'm at right now is I have this automation engineer who really comes from both sides of the background. He took a mechatronics program.
Nice.
So, I mean, if he needs to work on something mechanical, no problem for him. And he can also do the programming side of the PLCs.
That's great.
That really bridges the gap for us personally. I mean, and I've noticed a lot of, especially local colleges, are really pushing those programs, and I think will certainly be valuable in the long run when it comes to the technology aspect
Right.
and way it's moving along.
Right. It essentially allows you to speak two languages or three
Oh yes,
languages.
100%.
Right. When I think of crafts and I think of skills and maintenance and industry, I think of them as languages. It's like I do these things and we have nomenclature, we have processes, we have things that we know in our group of being, let's just say, diesel mechanics, right? And then you have electricians who may work on fully electronic and electrical drive machines. So there's both of those things. It's pretty cool.
Yes, it absolutely is very, very cool.
Okay. Number four. Who is the best leader you have ever worked for, with, or around, and why? Drop their name if you feel comfortable to do so. Did I lose you? Mike, can you hear me? Mike? I think I lost Mike. Mike, are you there? Uh-oh. He's gone. Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ken, did I lose you there?
Yeah.
I kept talking.
Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I did. So if you can hear me now, so the best leader I've ever worked for was a guy by the name of Douglas Farrell. I worked with him. I only worked with him for a couple of years when I was in the tea manufacturing, and he moved on. But he was probably one of the kindest, forward-thinking leaders I've ever worked for. He wasn't a guy. I mean, he was the CEO of the company, but he wasn't a guy that was hiding away in his office. He was on the floor daily. He was meeting with the individual teams. I mean, so the setup for our parking was strange. It was on an island where our factory was. So you had to park across the bridge. So most of the employees, but there was a few parking spots that that you could park it on the island. He told me one day, because I always ask him, why do you park over where we all park? And he goes, because if you got to walk that far, I got to walk that far. It was just it left a really good impression on me.
Yeah, that's a leader.
Absolutely.
That's that's a leader. That's what leaders do. Leaders surround themselves with the people that they lead. They make sure that there's commonality in all of the things that they do with respect to their people. That's a great point. Mine is I have two. So when I was in the Navy, my the best leader I have, his name was Chief Fontanez, Luis Fontanez. He's not in the Navy anymore, and he let me fail and kept me understanding that there's a difference between being super good at your job and then knowing how to communicate and work with people within the business. When I was in the Navy, I was a hothead. I'm the best mechanic on the ship. I could fix everything on the flight deck, but I was a dick, and people
Yeah.
recognize that. He helped me understand that there's more to being just the best mechanic. And then in the civilian world was Patrick Callahan. And Patrick was the type of leader that trusted me to do the things that needed to be done. There was no punching the clock. There was no this or that. It was these are the results that we want to see. I don't care how you get there. Get there. I'm going to support you 100% of the way.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
they were both great people, but they were really life lessons for per se that I learned from them.
Yeah, 100%. They sound like fantastic leaders.
Good dudes. All right. Last one, Mike. Why is learning a skill so important? And when I say skill, it can be any skill. Why is learning a skill so important?
Best answer I can get from that is learning is important.
Bingo.
It's learning anything. I mean, regardless of the trade, the career you want to go in. I mean, constant learning is important in this world. It's important for all of us. I mean, I still, I mean, every day I'm learning something new. A lot of times with my automation engineer, he'll be programming a PLC. I'll just sit behind him. Just to see what he's doing. I'm
Right.
never going to be an expert at it, but I'm going to learn something from him.
Sure.
Uh, my maintenance guys, they come to me with something that they did, and I'm like, man, I want to know how you did that. I mean, you guys are fantastic. So just learning in general is so important to our future.
Super right on the money. I love that. Learning is the skill, right? Being a good learner.
It
Um,
is.
and when we talk about if we go a little deeper into it and say skill, well, like of course, I'm going to use industry and maintenance because that's what I do, right? But when I think of maintenance crafts, skills, technicians, welders, electricians, like those types of crafts and industry literally shape the way you think. It changes the way you look at the world, right? And when I say skills in trades, I really mean life skills, right? I mean, learning to be an electrician, your house is everything is electrical, right? being a
100%.
being a plumber, you learn everything transfers. So learning skills, whether it be you take a welding class at your local community college or you do a online pace course on plumbing, electrical, right? Just learning something about those types of things is transferable to your personal life. It makes you more self-sufficient, self-sustaining. Um, and to your point, it encourages the learning because you're going to see fruits of your labor from your learning and you're going to want to learn more,
Absolutely.
right?
Uh,
I mean, it's amazing.
It really is.
That was a great answer. Learn the skill of learning.
Absolutely.
I think that's a mic drop. We just have to end it right there.
Excellent.
Mike, I also wanted to make one note. Mike is also UpKeep certified. So, everybody, if you're interested in learning about UpKeep and CMMS, please go get UpKeep certified. It's on our website. And it's a great course and it teaches you lots of things. Mike, you get the last word. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to chat about automation, CNC, maintenance, getting more information on that Remington factory?
Search me up on LinkedIn. Michael McKinney is the best way to find me. Reach out to me, connect with me. I'm glad to talk to anybody in the industry.
That's awesome. Mike, I want to thank you personally. And on behalf of UpKeep, thank you. It has been wonderful. I love hearing these stories. I love people that have gone from trades to leadership, even people who just stay in the trades. I love them. They're our favorite people. Um, and I can't thank you enough. And we will see you on the next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome, Mike. See you, man.
See ya.